CURES is sponsored by Wheeler Health's Better Choice program. More at wheelerhealth.org.
Welcome to the CURES podcast. I'm Kara Sundlin. We're happy that you're here. And this is the show where we explore cutting-edge wellness from credible sources. It is actually Mental Wellness Awareness Month in January. And I know the year has started off pretty heavy. A lot of news out there. Maybe a lot of you are feeling there's just so much chaos. How do I keep a positive mindset? That's why we have Dr. Laura Saunders. She is a psychologist at the Institute of Living in Hartford, and we're going to talk about some strategies that can really help us. I'm someone who does the news every day, Dr. Laura, so I hate to say sometimes I know how to, like a surgeon, put myself in a different spot, but even for us, it's just nonstop, and it gets heavy with all that's going on in the world right now, so thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Kara. And I think you're really bringing up a good point. There is so much going on in our world, and that world could be your community, your state, our country. Sometimes within family systems. Honestly, I think this snowstorm, while it was eagerly anticipated by a lot of people, still kind of put like a heavy blanket on a lot of things and impaired travel and plans. And, there's all sorts of things on social media about, can someone help me, shovel myself out, right? Yeah. So there's so much going on in our hearts and in our communities. And so I think we need some guidelines to focus on our mental health and our mental well-being to get ourselves in as positive a mindset as we can.
Yes, and this is not just woo-woo, airy-fairy. We're talking about neuroscience, and so when we talk about the power of positivity, you want us to change the words we say to ourselves, because what we say to ourselves matters.
Yes, I don't even know that people realize, how much their inner critic or inner voice plays a role in their attitude and in their outlook. It's happening for me too. Work's a very stressful time for me right now. And I have to really work hard to curb that negative voice. And, the guideline that I use is if you wouldn't say it to someone else, don't say it to yourself. That negative talk just fuels self-doubt. It hinders creativity. It worsens anxiety. So we need to take steps to replace self-criticism with a little bit of grace and self-compassion.
So let's script that out, okay? I think for a lot of us, mornings are tough, right? I love how Mel Robbins has said, if you're having trouble getting out of bed and facing the day, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Before you get to 1, launch yourself out. Because that's when these thoughts can come of overwhelm. Oh, did I forget this? Did I do this? Did I pay that bill? Oh gosh, I got to pick up the kid at this time. There's not a lot of time for the things we want to do sometimes is how it can feel. So when our mind is racing in the moment, how do we counter the overwhelm or the self-criticism? Oh, should have done that. I should have done this. I didn't write it down. Oh my gosh, you're starting behind the 8 ball kind of.
So I think that's a really good point because honestly, all those things that you just mentioned made me envision not wanting to get out of bed either, right?
Yeah.
I think when we overwhelm ourselves with, the dozen things that we need to get done in a given day, or conversely, right, based on the stage of life that sometimes that people are in, not having any structure to the day makes you say, why bother getting out of bed? Why bother going to bed at a decent time? Because it doesn't really matter when I wake up, right? And what we know is that, the science behind getting yourself to bed at a regular time, getting yourself up in the morning at a regular time helps your overall well-being. But it's in that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 that Mel Robbins talks about in the Let Them theory. It's not about tackling the entire day. It's only about tackling those moments right after you get out of bed.
Yeah.
And so it's really shifting your focus to dealing what you have to do in the moment. I might have a dozen things on my list because I'm constantly making lists for myself. But I can't focus on that right when I get out of bed because that's the kind of stuff that makes it hard to get out of bed. It's just, what do I need to do first thing? The first thing I need to do, I take my vitamins. For
Brush
second
my
thing I need to
teeth.
do, turn on the water because I make tea in the morning, right? What are the things that I need to do? It's just taking things one step at a time. Otherwise, when it's overwhelming, it tends to become emotionally paralyzing.
Yeah. So, also, what about what we're reading or watching? And I say this as a news anchor. I personally think when people say, I don't watch any news, that, we need to be aware. We're all in a society. But there's a lot going on right now. So, do we need to limit our diet of reading certain things, watching certain things?
I think we all are aware of what our tolerance and limits are.
Yeah.
So you're right. I'm someone that likes to have some kind of an understanding of what's going on out in the world, but I have a good sense of where my limits are. So I'll watch some of the news. Honestly, I care more about sort of what's going on locally. That's more my focus. But sometimes taking a break, turning things off, refocusing on what you do have control over as opposed to what you don't have control over. There are some terrible things going on in this country right now, and we need to focus on what we do have control over in our lives. We have control over how we respond to things, the being kind to our family and our community, putting our best effort forth at work, whatever it is, what you do have control over versus what you don't have control over.
Yeah, absolutely. And just back to the idea, we're talking about 4 guidelines to mental wellness. So we're not going to overwhelm, and you don't even have to do all of them. You might just choose one. But we're talking about changing that self-criticism to self-compassion. And so if you're feeling that beginning of anxiety or stress, what do we do in that moment? What does it look like to have self-compassion with a script?
I think it actually starts with identifying what's going on. It's identifying that inner critic. It's identifying, whether you say it's, a parent's voice or a coach's voice or whoever, that negative voice that's in your head, whoever it is. Unfortunately, parents always get blamed for a lot of things, but, whatever it is, it's identifying that critic and then working on either slowing it down, changing the script, or replacing it with more positive self-talk, right? And we often engage in what I call, or what's referred to as cognitive distortions, right? Those are tricks that your mind plays on you. So you could be like the negative filter, where you only let the negative things in and all the positive things sort of bounce off your emotional walls.
Yeah.
So, identifying those tricks that your mind plays on you is important, because that's how you start to bring more compassion into your life and give yourself a little bit of ease.
We hear a lot about affirmations. I know you're a fan of them. Is there science behind them? And is that part of it when we start saying positive self-talk? Does that mean the I am affirmations? I am safe. I'm loved. I'm okay. Whatever feels good to you.
Right. I have my 4 affirmations that I say all the time. I am okay. I am at peace. I am healthy. I am safe. Right. And even if those 4 things aren't wholly true for you, you put them as more positive, like I wish to be happy, or I seek to be okay. I am working on being at peace. I am building on my health. I am, focusing on aspects of my life where I feel safe, right? So they can be like open affirmations. It doesn't have to be, well, I mean, things that are perfectly true in your life, but that you're aspiring to do. So I use those 4 aspirations all the time, to just kind of center and ground myself.
Okay. So writing them down, putting them on Post-it notes. I know that's what you do. Like sometimes I actually did just write on a little piece of paper by the sink where the mornings can get a little hectic, and I just put pause, breathe, peace. So like, just because sometimes we got to slow our thoughts down if we're a habit of getting going, we get triggered. So the other thing being, stop comparing yourself. And we're all guilty of this. I mean, I know I tell my kids not to do it, but I think all of us as humans sometimes wonder, am I enough? Am I doing the right thing? And that can happen even more if you're looking at social media, right?
Right. I mean, to your point, we all do this, right? We all, and I do think that in this day and age, Social media has made it worse because, as I say, we're comparing someone else's highlights to our lowlights, right? The things that are not going well in my life, or the relationships that are not quite what I want them to be. I see all these really beautiful, happy people, and I say, what's wrong with me? I think it just fuels feelings of inadequacy. It fuels feelings of anxiety. It fuels, feeling like you're not good enough. So the less we can compare ourselves and just focus on, again, what do I have control over today? What do I need to do in this moment to help myself feel better? Kind of bring it back to the here and now, will ground you. And whether that's, as you say, it's taking a breath, taking a pause, using an affirmation, something you can do to not compare yourself to other people.
You brought up cognitive distortions, and I've seen this talked about other ways too. Like, how do we know if I should really be afraid, or if it's my mind playing tricks on me, or I really, how do I trust that I am okay? Or, oh my gosh, when you're in an anxious mind, I guess it can seem really true. Like, you got to do this. You got to rush. You got to get this done right now. Something's bad's going to happen if you don't do this. What's the trick to know, what? I can take a break, or, my mind might be really exaggerating how bad this situation is.
Right. And, I've heard this quote. I've heard it attributed to Cher. I've heard Kristen Bell repeat it. I've heard it from other people. I think I've heard you say it, right? And if it's not important in 5 years, maybe it's not so important. And whatever it is you need to do, if you're overgeneralizing how difficult things are in your life, or if you're engaging in negative self-talk, if you're the negative filter, which is you allow only negative things in, right? There's a list of cognitive distortions. We can actually do a whole segment on them. Oh. And the more we can identify the tricks that our mind's playing on us, and then work to combat them. The reality is, anxiety is not necessarily going to respond always to logic, right? But what we do better with is slowing ourselves down, trying to be in the moment, and not engaging in so much catastrophic thinking, because it only serves to make us feel worse about ourselves and our lives.
Okay. I don't think he's watching. So I see this a lot in my 16-year-old boy. Where 1 minute he's fine, next minute he's like, I hate everything. I never have any good days. Everything's always bad. And I'm like, I can hear you in my head being like, you can't talk like that. But is that just, I think we all feel that way sometimes. I try to catch myself, and it feels very real when you're feeling like that. But are some people just more negative than others? Is that a normal thing for teens to be like that?
So I think there's two parts to that answer. I do think that we all know people where their propensity is to be more negative, right? So yes, is that built in based on life experiences or other things? Yes, there's individuals who have a propensity to be more negative or be more critical, and that takes some work. The other example that you gave is, honestly, it's developmental, right? There's so much that's not in the control in the life of a teenager, that their mood swings are just like, everything is catastrophic. Nothing ever works out for me. Nobody likes me. And I hate my life in this world. And then and 10 minutes later, everything's great because they're playing a video game and they forgot all that. So okay. It's not to ride that emotional roller coaster with your teenager and really trying to stay on the ground with them while they ride the emotional roller coaster, to just remind them, I'm here if you need me, and kind of be more a grounding influence.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to take a deeper dive in that, because whether it be your teenager or your spouse or someone who's going through something, we can get pulled into that. Like, someone else in your family is like really stressed, and like you're getting stressed too. But one of our focuses for having mental wellness, you said, would be to actually practice being the lighthouse or calming. So practically, what do we do when we're in this someone else's stress weather, and how we can not get sucked in?
So it takes a lot of work. And again, it always starts with identifying, wait, this person's negativity is really sort of spilling over. I was feeling okay, and now this person's negativity is spilling over onto me. So it's identifying the pattern that's going on, and then stepping into what will clear your mind. Going for a walk, reading a book, doing some knitting, doing a crossword puzzle, talking to a friend, the dozens of things that you can do to sort of bring yourself back into the present moment. Focus on something that makes you happy, watch a silly show or video, doing things that kind of bring you back into the here and now, and not letting someone else's negativity kind of spill over into your own sense of well-being that we're all working on.
And physically, like, remove yourself from that room. Does that matter to kind of walk away without, not that you're abandoning your loved one if they're having a moment, but physically maybe going to take a break because just being around that might throw you off kilter? You're trying to help them, but they're pulling you down.
Absolutely. Taking some space, we say on here, move a muscle, change your mood.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, I just need to get out of that space. And again, this is not the best weather for taking walks, but even just moving to another room in the house, ending a text chain that just feels like it's too negative for you, or saying to someone, you know what, I can't really talk much longer. I've got other things to do, because you just need to sort of take some space from something. So the things that you need to do to prioritize your own well-being are actually very, very important.
Yeah, if you're just joining us on the feed, we're talking with Dr. Laura Saunders. We're talking about 4 guidelines to mental wellness, because it's been a rough start to the year with storms and a lot of stuff going on in the world. So we're giving you practical tips so you can stay healthy and grounded. In fact, we're coming back to talk about how we can focus on our health and how you can handle toxic people. But first, we're going to take just a quick break to hear from one of our sponsors.
Struggling with gambling? Wheeler Health's Better Choice program offers personalized support and treatment to help you regain control. Visit wheelerhealth.org to learn more and take the first step towards recovery today.
We're back on CURES. This is a show where we talk about cutting-edge wellness from credible sources. There's a lot of noise out there. We want to bring you folks who have the science-backed solutions for what you're trying to think about. And we're talking about mental wellness. I said this before when we did this, because January is Mental Wellness Awareness Month. I love saying mental wellness instead of mental illness. Just something about that. When we focus on how do I be more well, already feels better.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's a perfect example of a shift in your language, right? A shift in the way that you're focusing on things is the exact direction that we're talking about moving in.
Okay, so now we're going to focus on our physical health, because physical health very closely linked to your mental health. If you're not doing well physically, I think we all notice this when we're sick. You sometimes get depressed. So they're very linked. They're not in separate spheres like we once believed.
There is no physical health without mental well-being, and there's no mental well-being without physical health. The mind and body are very closely connected. There's tons of data to show this. Negative health behaviors have a negative impact on mental health also. So negative health behaviors is, think of your kind of, how the kind of food that you take into your body, the quality of your sleep, the amount of activity. Again, sometimes I don't even call it exercise because that feels daunting to people. I call it activity.
Yeah,
so it's just being more active during the day, doing some basic things to improve your physical well-being automatically helps your mental well-being as well.
Yeah, it feels a lot less overwhelming too than to say I'm going to go to the gym every day, or I'm just saying, like, right now with the cold outside and we're on the air all the time, I'm going to take a walk in between shows, just around the building, little things to move that we can do. How important is it if you're struggling with your mental well-being and your physical health? I mean, it's both of them. We're hearing a lot more information coming out about the toxicity of alcohol and how that can affect your body and your mental health. How important is it to limit alcohol?
Right. So for a lot of people, this has been dry January. So it's been a time to sort of cleanse your mind and your body. And actually, I've seen a bunch of stories about how, in general, alcohol sales are down significantly, whereas they were really up during the pandemic and for a good amount of time afterward. They're down lower now because people are trying to prioritize their mental health. So I'm not saying everyone needs to be a teetotaler and give up alcohol, but to really be more mindful of how much you're taking in, to limit it when possible, follow the guidelines. based on, gender in terms of what works for males and for females, and just trying to cut back and making sure that you're not necessarily using alcohol to manage stress, that you're finding other ways to manage stress and anxiety. And if you are, using alcohol or other substances, that you're using it socially, not necessarily to manage stress.
Right. Not so maybe one guideline would be I'm not going to drink alone, or I'm not going to drink Monday through Friday. These are ways where you've talked about this before, harm reduction. I do know we've had a lot of other doctors on the show that said, the thinking that, oh, this wine is good for me and prevents heart disease, that's all out the window. It's just a toxin. Maybe you're not going to be a teetotaler, but don't tell yourself it's good for you.
Right. It's coming out of the denial that it is good for you. But, again, I'm not saying that everyone needs to give it up, but it's looking at the harm reduction model, which is reducing use, having some guidelines for when you are or not, having alcohol, but overall reducing use is going to be better for your physical well-being.
And I just read a term the other day called hangxiety, that it's very normal to feel anxious the day after a decent amount of drinking. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, you can see, especially, it's actually, it's very true with marijuana. There's a lot of rebound anxiety, but yes, you can get rebound anxiety, especially if you are using alcohol or substances to manage anxiety. You're not dealing with the sources of that anxiety. You're sort of just putting a wash over it, but that doesn't mean the anxiety is not going to kind of kick back up again. And, you're dehydrated and you have, there's just so many negative side effects from too much alcohol.
And just talking about that, one way is water. We have to drink more water. That can actually improve, sounds simple, but it can really improve your mental well-being. If we're dehydrated or hungry, we can also have more anxiety in our world.
Right. And, water's just good for flushing toxins out of you. It's just kind of a good, whenever one of my kids says something's wrong, I often say, first have a glass of water and then we'll discuss what the next step is, right? Just, it kind of it's like a mindfulness exercise, just drinking a glass of water. It's just taking a moment for yourself, and it's like a little bit of self-care.
Yeah. Which is actually, I just read the other day, and I told myself to remember it when you're getting in those, battles maybe with your kids about something or they're upset. What you just said adds to this article. They said, water before words. Just remember that. We're going to have a house rule. We're going to have water before words. So that could be something that when you're feeling stress, go get that glass of water. If nothing else, it gives you a pause.
Yeah, it's good for all of us.
Okay. We want to let go of grudges and negative people because harboring resentment is actually a toxin for us. And forgiveness is freedom.
Forgiveness is freedom. But remember, forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean condoning the actions of others. Forgiveness is about yourself. Free yourself from the burden of negativity. So I think that's really important to remember. It doesn't mean you forgive someone and then whatever happened, you just you just say, well, that's okay that happened to me. Forgiveness is about yourself. It does not mean condoning the actions of others. I also, and I think I've mentioned this here before, so I'm not necessarily on board with the cutting people out of your life totally movement that's happening with a lot of the younger generation. I do believe there's a lot of emotional benefit to maybe taking some space when you need to, but working on resolving aspects of relationship as opposed to completely walking away and sort of, Xing someone out of your life.
Yeah, we're seeing that
there is
a
whole movement about that as well.
Yeah, we had the Beckham family in the news recently where their son said he's going to choose estrangement. Oprah was just doing a show about all these young people choosing estrangement. And I guess maybe in some cases where there's abuse and things like that, it can matter. But when you cut a mother or a father or a brother out of your life, you do still have some pain after that, right? Even if you choose estrangement, you're harboring a lot of that resentment, or the feelings don't just go away because you're not talking to the person.
Right. I do actually worry about that. That's the point. I feel like if you just walk away from something, you don't ever work to resolve some of those feelings. I just listened to I'm a big podcast listener. I just listened to a podcast about the Bruce Springsteen movie. And because it really accentuates a time in his life when he wrote the Nebraska album. And what it really highlights is a lot of the pain that he had in the relationship with his father. And, so it talked about sort of how he worked through some of that pain, that his relationship with his father was never what he wanted it to be. But instead of cutting someone out, it's working on how do I address those feelings, resolve those feelings, free myself from some of the burden of negativity, but not just look to be estranged from many people in your life. Because I do think there's benefit, psychological and emotional benefit from working things through. Sometimes taking space, but also working things through.
You can absolutely instill some boundaries, and that's something we can all get better at. But number one, we're going to talk about the 4 things as we're ending our time with you, our free therapy Wednesday at the time of this taping. Number one, we're going to focus on self-talk. Try to replace that negative self-talk. Number 2, stop comparing yourself to others. My mother, Judy Vargo, said that if you compare yourself to others, you're either vain or bitter. So I always think of that. Number 3, focus on health, because physical health and mental health are linked. Can't have one without the other. And number 4, letting go of grudges and negative people. Now, if you're taking notes, if you're a type A person, or you're thinking, oh gosh, I got to do all this stuff, you actually advise start with 1.
Well, I don't want people to be overwhelmed. Start with one thing. Tackle one thing at a time. From the 4 you just listed, choose one thing, focus on that, and do what you need to do to help yourself today. I'd rather see, promote feelings of success than tackling something too large, feeling like a failure, and then quitting. So take it one step at a time.
Yeah, that could be one of your intentions. I'm choosing to make intentions this year instead of resolutions. They seem just a little kinder to myself. But practice that self-care. Be kind to yourself. I love that you said if you wouldn't say it to a friend, don't say it to yourself. January is Mental Wellness Awareness Month. I hope this served everyone. Thank you, Dr. Laura Saunders, for being with us.
Thank you, Kara.
And you can always watch Kara's Cures right here on WFSB Plus. It's on demand. You can go back and watch lots of other episodes. We've got more great free content to help your mental health with Dr. Laura Saunders and other great contributors as we cover cutting-edge wellness from credible sources. Have a great day, everyone, and be well. You can also follow me at Kara Sundlin on all of my social media channels. We'll see you in just a little bit.
CURES, sponsored by Wheeler Health's Better Choice program. More at wheelerhealth.org.